Welcome into this special NBA Finals edition of Five on the Floor. Floor is yours. With me on this episode, you know me, Greg Sylvander, but you also know Sean Rochester. You can follow him at S Rochester NBA, the coach of the network. Um, we are happy to come to you amongst an NBA Finals. We are not going to get lost in how cool it is that the Miami Heat are participating. And that means that our opinions matter more than ever because we follow this team and we're the experts. So we're trying to do as much content as possible. So today we thought it would be interesting to kind of talk about where we feel the team, the fan base, everyone feels mid-series after a tough loss. Talk about maybe some things related to some props we see on Prize Picks and Bettor Edge that maybe we should take advantage of, because I think that would be a pretty cool thing to get in front of. If we're going to watch the Heat win, let's also make some money while doing it. So we're going to do that. And then the biggest thing with Floor is Yours that y'all know is that we like to take your comments. So we encourage you to queue up your questions. I will say that super chats we will read, but we're going to try to read all of them because that's what this is about. Before we get into any of that, though, I want to tell you about the two sponsors that are really spearheading this show. And that's our daily fantasy sponsor and our daily gambling sponsor. First, our daily fantasy sponsor, which is Prize Picks. Y'all know the code FIVE. That is where you use that code to get your deposit matched up to $100. Prize Picks is super easy and everyone's using it because it's so easy, so intuitive and fun to use. You choose your favorite players in your favorite sports. You can choose up to 6 players on one card. You can do flex plays, power plays. I'm doing a ton of these cool new stats like first points in first 6 minutes. You got to use the code 5. Here's the platform. You can see it in the desktop version. Sean is showing it now. And it's really cool on desktop, actually super intuitive, but also you can download the app. So here's all of the NBA props you're seeing. You can go more or less, for instance, 12.5 points for Gabe Vincent. I'm going more than 12.5 points for Gabe Vincent. But you got to use the code 5, FIVE, to get your initial deposit matched up to $100. Tell your friends about this because it's a lot of fun to play. It is super legit, and it is the fastest growing fantasy platform on earth right now. But our daily game, or not daily, our gambling sponsor here at 5 Reasons Sports Network is a tool, and that's Bettor Edge. And people always ask us, like, okay, I do DraftKings, I do FanDuel. What's the difference between Bettor Edge? Bettor Edge is a social betting marketplace. So instead of you betting with a book where they're setting a price and accepting your bet and taking fees and paying out winnings, the marketplace here is connecting you with users on opposite sides of bets at the prices that you set. So you can really find value. You can get bets fulfilled that you wouldn't find elsewhere. And here's the coolest thing. You can refer friends and win your own money. But to get started, use the code 5RSN. That'll get you $20 to play right away. We have competitions going for Game 4. This is a really cool one. All you have to do is beat Sean, so that's easy money. Use the code 5RSN. That gets you $20. But here's the thing. Like, all these competitions we do that Sean sets up, they're $5. So like, we're paying for you to join and play with us. You may win and then off you go. So like, join, you have nothing to lose. 5RSN is the code. You'll get $20 to play and then put the rest of the money on the Heat because that's always the safe cultured bet. So again, 5 Reasons Sports Network wants to always tell you about Prize Picks and Bettor Edge. The code for Prize Picks is 5. The code for Bettor Edge is 5RSN. All right, so that's sponsor talk because they are paying the bills and we love them, especially around this time. I did a show earlier tonight where Ethan and I talked about the mind frame of this team going into Game 4 and that there's fragility that I don't agree with to some degree. Sean, before we dive into the props we like or any of the minutia that we planned on talking about, how are you feeling before Game 4?
You know, ultimately, I think the goal has to be you get a split in Denver. We did that. Now it's get a split in Miami. And I think even going into Game 3, The realistic goal was get a split. The optimistic goal was to take 2, right? You've been very good at home, and Denver has not historically over the season been very good on the road. I just think that game 4 ultimately decides the series, right? Either you're going to be 2-2 or you're going to be 3-1. If you're down 3-1, you're not coming back from 3-1 against this team. I just think they're too good. So I think I'm optimistic. I think that the 1 day of rest is not great. I think we could use a 2-day breakout, if we could. But ultimately, I think we'll bounce back tomorrow and make it a competitive game. I'm not going to guarantee that we win, but I think that we'll come out and compete and show up better than we did in game 3.
109-94. That was not good. The Heat, the biggest takeaway for me, the more that I download what I watched, is that Jimmy ain't right for a multitude of reasons, but no one gives a crap about that. 109-94, as you're seeing here, the box score for our box score watchers out there. Shout out Spoon. Jokic had a triple-double. They were more physical than Miami. Sometimes this boils down to Miami needs to come out and play with a sharpness and a physicality and a disposition that screams that they are desperate. And so they were feeling themselves a little bit too much. They need shots to fall. Some of that probably transcends how good you're feeling, frankly. It's just the shots didn't fall. But on defense, the effort, the intensity, it has to be turned up. It's the only way to beat this team. I'm not as down as others. I don't think Denver did anything in game 3 that made me say, whoa, Miami can't stop that. It was very much like game 1. I feel like, okay, you can clean up a few things, and if you hang around, you can close that down. For the 2-man game of Murray and Jokic, do you see anything Miami does adjustment-wise, or is this continuing to play it the way that they have and just hoping that basically you're going to get a few breaks, but also that your guys are just playing to the level of those great players?
Yeah, I think it has to be targeted at Murray. He's, and Steve Kerr said this the other day on Draymond's podcast, like he's the head of the snake, even though Jokic is obviously, he's amazing. I mean, he's the best player in the world, I think. I think if you limit Murray, because they both pass the ball so well. That's the thing. Like they're so hard to limit, and their 2-man game is so hard to stop. I think the talk today that I read out of practice is that they're going to continue to throw a lot of different things at it and try to find stuff that sticks. And if it doesn't work, you move to the next thing. I don't think there's one single solution or one single player that's going to be able to limit it. I don't know what do you think? What do you think they're going to try to do to try to stop those 2 guys?
There's nothing that just 2 guys can do. There's an element to it that you have to try to confuse them enough to that maybe you just force a couple more contested shots because to your point, you're not stopping it. So part of this, to me, it has a lot to do with that. Why did you win game 2? I mean, I'm not going to run from it. When you shoot 52% from 3 or whatever that ended up netting out to be, like that is the kind of stuff that mitigates such a potent, great, executed, like a group that executes the way that Denver does and the way that they keep going back to what's working. But I do think that there's ways around it. I do think that Spo probably needs to start thinking about shortening up the rotation. And to that point, I want to start going to some comments. But before we dive into comments, I mentioned our sponsors. So I'm going to start with Prize Picks. And I want to give you guys a few plays that I think are really great ones. And then, Sean, if you have any, please dive in. So Prize Picks, you're using the code 5, FIVE. One that I can't run from is Jimmy Butler. Right now, if you look at his numbers for rebounds and assists, it's at 12.5. I'm taking the over there. I feel like he's going to play enough minutes that whether it's rebounds or assists, he's going to be able to get over that number. So that is a easy play for me. I also am feeling good about Duncan Robinson over 1.5 3-pointers made. So that's another Miami Heat prop that I really like. And then the last one that I'm calling out because I'm going to continue to do so because I just feel like this guy's going to continue to ascend. And that's Bam Adebayo's points at 20.5. Are there any ones from your perspective, Sean, that jump off the page? I'm not choosing Denver props because I don't want to put that hate on myself. There's a couple of them I do like, but I will resist any ones you particularly like while using that code 5 to get your deposit match, Sean.
Yeah, I haven't looked ahead to tomorrow yet. I'm looking back at what I bet yesterday because I remember some of the trends. One of the things I bet yesterday was Jimmy under 2.5 steals and blocks, and we'll get into, I'm sure, at some point the Jimmy injury questions. He hasn't been getting that. I don't remember exactly the trend data, but over the last, I would say, 2 series since that injury happened in the New York series, he really hasn't been that ball hawking, free safety type guy.
They
I
took
bet
him
that
off the
last
board.
night. Yeah, and he really hasn't. He hasn't rebounded the ball very well either. Last night he had very low, if I remember correctly, 2 rebounds last night.
Yeah,
And so I looked at that one. The under, I think, is going to be my play again tomorrow. The under in the first half, I won yesterday. I did see somewhere that unders in game 4, and I know we're still on Prize Picks, but I'm kind of bouncing all over the place. Unders in finals game 4 in the first half are 14-4 since 2005, 78%, including 10-0 when the home team is down 2-1. So, the Heat are going to have to buckle in and try to play some defense if they're going to have any hope at this, and this is going to be their last punch. So I think a game is an under is most likely. Go ahead, Greg.
But before we pivot to Bettor Edge and the unders, to that point about the scores being lower, they have Jokic at 15.5 points in the first half. They have Bam at 10.5, Jimmy at 13.5, Jamal Murray at 12.5. Even Gabe Vincent's at 6.5. That's kind of high. So maybe you go under on a couple of those, knowing that there could be a lower scoring first half to come. Bettor Edge is the other platform. You're getting your own lines based off of the juice that you can find that you like. Right now, I locked in a little bit of money on Miami. It was +3 at the time. That's what it's still up here at +101 odds. You're liking the under. Do you like the under for the full game? What is it at 210.5? Is that what we're sitting at right now, or has that shifted? 212 now, huh?
So I'm looking here. Bettor Edge 210.5 is what they got in the marketplace, and that's what it is. Consensus other places. If you're on Bettor Edge, you click on the 3 dots, you go to external prices. You can kind of compare to all your major books around the country. There's a 211 out there, but 210.5 is generally the consensus number. So, if you compare that to the last game, that's lower. Yesterday it was, I believe, 212. 214.5 is what I bet of that yesterday. So the trend is that the games are being slow paced, low possession, and that's what Miami wants. But you got to make shots. We just didn't make shots yesterday. So I think it's going to be an under game. I don't know. I mean, if Miami makes shots, obviously Denver is going to be capable of putting up points too, and you want to see Miami make shots. So if you're thinking Heat, it's probably over. I guess I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes it doesn't correlate like that.
Well, I can tell you what I'm playing on Bettor Edge. It's at +151. If I put $13 down, I win $33, and that's Miami to win on the money line. That's where I'm going, baby. Right there. You see it. That's the bet. I'm taking that one right there up top. That $13.11. Right now, I'm locking it in as we speak. So that's where I'm going. I'm feeling good about Miami in game 4, but there's player props up there too. We always love Prize Picks, but there's cool props there. And also futures. Like you can bet on Bam Adebayo winning finals MVP if you want. I think that's a cool thing that a lot of people don't realize about Bettor Edge. So check that out using the code 5RSN. You'll get your $20. Any final thoughts on Bettor Edge from you, Sean, before we take some comments?
No, what I'll do is I'll plug. We have a competition going on. We do this every game. We've been doing this the entire playoffs, basically every day. Competition, like Greg said, $5 to join. You go to bettoredge.com/5RSN. You'll get $20 for signing up. It's only $5 to join, so you can do that 4 times. Hopefully there's 4 more games left in the playoffs. You get your all the way through the game 7 of the finals. And in this case, it's picking 12 picks. So you have the side, you have the total, you have all kinds of different props, rebounds, blocks, threes, points, assists, all over the place. So you can pick those, and in this case, all you have to do is finish him first. The last one was beat me. This one, you finish first, you win the entire pot. And usually there's somewhere between like 8 to 15 people in there. So it's a pretty good pot for a $5 investment.
Definitely check it out, because like I'm telling y'all, use the code 5RSN and we're paying for you to play. Like, we're giving you $20. So put the 5 down and play in this tournament. You may win. So the point of Floors Yours is usually to take comments, but we also wanted to plug our sponsors. We wanted to give you our thoughts because it's been with Ethan traveling and now everyone back. It's been Ethan, Brady, Alex, myself on the show, and I want Sean's perspective. Brian was unavailable, so let's go through some comments. Randy's first. I'll read this one, and then we'll go back and forth. Heat bounce back right when you're ready to count them out. I'm still holding on to the rope. Let's go, boys. Randy, I'm with you. What the hell have they done to make us doubt the fact that they can respond in game 4? I'm with you. For anybody who doubts the fact that they're going to respond, and even if they don't, you know what? You still did the right thing by sticking by them, because this group has given us no reason to do otherwise. Let's go to the next one.
Fernando Lopez says, I let my guts hang. We appreciate you having the guts and letting them hang. Heat and 6. That's a bold one, 4 in a row. That'd be big time right there. Next one.
Joey B says, how hurt is Jimmy? His defense is pretty lazy in game 3. There were sequences in game 3 where he did not look mentally as engaged as I would like. Physically, no one wants to hear it, but I hear that the ankle and the foot hurts, dealing with swelling, dealing with pain, dealing with nothing that he cannot continue to rise above. But the Jimmy we saw, the fluid Jimmy that was just doing Michael Jordan-esque things against Milwaukee, maybe in spurts, full games, full series. I don't know.
And I'll add to that. It was on the Zach Lowe podcast today I listened to, and they talked about how, I think it was with Jeff Van Gundy. He talked about how Jimmy got to his spots. He just didn't make his shots. And so if you're encouraged about anything, it's the fact that Jimmy at least is getting there. He's getting to those spots. He just has to be better in terms of finishing those plays. And you know what? Yes, he has struggled over the last few weeks, but I think you got to put some trust in Jimmy's going to step up and get it done. All right, I got the next one. Brandon Walton says, Miami can definitely bounce back tomorrow. We just need everyone to be consistent. Role players seemingly did nothing on the offensive end. Yeah, the last night's game, it was Bam, Jimmy, and then nobody else. I know, Greg, we talked about this on 5 on the Floor last night. Who do you think is the guy that's going to step up and be the third catalyst for the Heat?
I really think Gabe is going to be that guy in game 4. And they need a shooter to step up. And so I'm hoping it's Duncan or Max. I lean Duncan at this point. Max is scaring me. But Gabe has a big bounce back game.
Let me continue to ask another question. Do you think they change anything in the starting lineup with Max Strus?
No.
I don't think so either.
They lose again, then we got some changes to be made. Anyway.
And I say that I don't think they change, but I think he has a very, very short leash.
Correct.
He comes out and doesn't shoot the ball well. I think they make a quick change early in the first quarter. Next one.
Joey says 109 isn't bad. They aren't playing great. 2 guys scored 60 plus. We just need to make layups, put pressure on Joker. I mean, for as great as those 2 guys played, Miami had the moments where they looked like they could get back in the game. Ultimately, it was not enough. They need to, one of those 2 guys has to be more limited. And so that's just the moral of the story. And then it has to be compounded by great offensive play, sharp, crisp offensive play from Miami. The Heat can't play bad. They can't make mistakes against Denver and win, point blank.
Let me get this next one. I want to show something really quick. Let me pull this up from Cleaning the Glass. I might have to zoom this in. Hold on one second. So we were talking about Jimmy. Let's see if this is zoomed in enough. Hopefully you can read this. I'll read it also, even if you can't see it on the screen. So Jimmy's points per shot attempt, basically his efficiency shooting the ball. This is obviously over the course of his career. His best season was this season. 131 points, 132 points per shot attempt, per 100 shot attempts, 100th percentile, one of the best in the league, right? If we go out to his game log and look at the last few games.
Oh, no.
Here's the blue colors on clean the glass are never good. So this is, look, 103, 100, 93, 100, 88. And now we're getting back into Boston. 116, 107, 114, 103, 120, 88, 111. So this is where, the health started changing. There's the Milwaukee series. See how the colors are starting to change?
Numbers.
It's like a beautiful fall day, a dreary sky. I mean, you need orange from Jimmy. You can't have the inefficiency if he's going to.
Sorry to interrupt, because these numbers are so illuminating. I'm glad to anyone who's joining us visually to see these. And if you're not, please come to the YouTube channel and watch, because you can really see how Jimmy's game has changed. It's just unbelievable compared to where he was against Milwaukee. But this is the thing. And Dwayne would think through this as he was trying to make it through injuries. Alonzo too, back in the day. Timmy too, actually, as I go back through the Rolodex of guys that I've heard talk about this. He don't need to be Superman every game. He just has to get a couple. He has to get one. And so, that's the thing, conjuring up enough to get one. Dwayne was just out of it, but he conjured up enough to go up into Indy and get one. You know what I mean? So it's one of those situations where you have to hope that he has just enough left in him to do that. And frankly, ain't nobody stopping Bam Adebayo. So if the 3-point shooters shoot well, I think that they can lean into Bam even heavier. But this is illuminating when you see how much difference it is, Sean.
Yeah, and just pointing out too real quick, his usage still very high. He's playing through injury. His assist, he's finding other ways to be positive in terms of his contribution. But you can also see the rebounding, the field goal, the defensive rebounding percentage is low. Injury, the steal percentage usually high. Hasn't done it in 2 games. I mean, it's a very visual way of seeing that something's ailing him. Whatever it is, it's just not what the normal Jimmy Butler.
Somebody needs to clip that and get that on Twitter. Okay, here's Joey saying here's ear day. Okay. There was no physicality last night. I started that with my show with Ethan, and I'll say it again here. If they're not going to be as talented offensively, if they're not going to execute as well, if they're not going to be as fine-tuned because of whatever pedigree Denver has, I roll my eyes a bit. They got to be more physical. That has to be the calling card.
Yep. Loud 127. Yeah, it ain't over till it's over. Absolutely. You keep fighting until there's triple zeros on the clock. I'll do this one too. Carlos Bello, is Jimmy looking slower on defense solely because of his ankle, or do you guys think that he can contain Murray going forward? That's a good question. Greg, what do you think about that?
I think that he's looking slower because his ankle and his foot hurts, and I think that he still can defend because of his anticipation and his smarts and the team defensive concepts in a way that can contain. I use it in air quotes because containing Murray is like what happened in game 2, not anything. He's not going to have 12 points and 5 turnovers and 2 assists. That's not what Jamal Murray's doing right now. But if you can contain him like game 2 relative to how everyone else played, that's what you have to hope for. And Jimmy can do that.
This is a good one. I know you're going to agree with this, Greg. High level content here.
I mean, it appears as if that's been a distraction. I see Adrian's in the comments, our buddy.
Adrian said, saw a few videos on how Denver put Jokic, everybody's going to keep messing that up, Jokic on the low block in the zone. It's causing issues. Our low guys are undersized. How will Spo adjust the zone to counter this?
That's a Sean question.
Yeah, I know the thread that Adrian is talking about. There was some really good threads today from people I wasn't familiar with about the 2-2-1 and then about how they attack the zone. It's interesting because there's the conventional thinking is you put Jokic at the nail, he's in the middle of the zone, and he should be able to just eat you up. And in game 2, that didn't happen. And then in game 3, you start to put him lower, which the Heat's zone is so unconventional, but
Yeah.
it's if it ultimately oftentimes is going to have three people on the back line, depending on how you align yourself.
Yeah.
With three people on the back line, there really shouldn't be a lot of space. But the problem with that is, and I call it the flank in our offense, because flank means like behind, you try to play behind the zone. It's hard to box out him, even if you were in man-to-man. Now when you're playing behind the zone on the block, Kyle Lowry can fight his ass off. He's not pushing him back. How do you keep him out of there? And he's such a good hub of he can shoot the ball, he can spray the ball out, he can find cutters. I don't know. I mean, maybe you minimize the zone, but the zone has been efficient in a lot of ways. I just don't think you can give them too much of one single thing, one single look.
Agree. And that was a great answer that I could have never articulated. That's why Sean and I make a good team here. Adrian, thank you for the good question. You always are top notch. We'll take a couple more and then we're going to close out of here. Here comes from Darius Turner. Why does the pick and roll game look so weird with Jimmy and Bam? Feel like if lob passes there, but Jimmy won't throw it to Bam ever. Also, Kyle needs to be better with those passes as well. I'll address Kyle first. Kyle's been better at it. I think that's still he's not going to be the primary catalyst for lob passes because nobody gives a crap what he's doing with the ball enough. With Jimmy and Bam, they've found a good groove, and I feel like the higher that they play, the better that looks. But also, Jimmy is not how can I put this? You know how Goran was more of a bounce passer than a guy that threw it up in the air? Jimmy's one of those guys too. He threads the needle. He's a bounce passer. He finds angles. He's not just lobbing it up. And so I think that also, when Bam's looking for somebody to just throw it above the trees, Jimmy's not the kind of guy that makes those type of passes. Dwayne was one of those guys that just kind of like could just throw it up and find that spot. I don't know if Shaq ingrained that in him early, if you're just born with it. But that's not the way Jimmy passes or Goran passed. And it's why Hassan, it would drive him crazy because he could never get something up top. And so I think that there's a little bit of that goes on between Jimmy and Bam. But Sean, from your perspective, is there something else that Jimmy could do differently to get Bam in those spots? Or is it more just the kind of passes he's comfortable throwing?
I think the other thing to consider is the length that Denver provides. You know, it's hard to create angles, whether it's to throw a bounce pass or a lob pass, because they're so damn long at every position. So the windows to make those passes are smaller. They're not a great defensive team, in my opinion, but the length definitely provides resistance from making passes, and they do a good job of packing the paint. They really don't guard the arc very well, I don't think, but the paint stuff is very difficult. As you can see, we're not getting a lot of rim shots or rim attempts. Let me find a couple more. This is a good one. We've talked about this guy a lot, and let's kind of see what his role is going to be. So Real Issues Podcast says Haywood Highsmiths should guard Murray if Jimmy's ankle is banged up. I think we both are probably in agreement that he has a role.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I don't think, and I said this last night, I don't think Haywood Highsmith is the answer. He's not going to suddenly shut down Jamal Murray.
No. But
we've seen what he's done to resist a Jaylen Brown or a Jason Tatum or a Jalen Brunson and all these different guys. He's so long. If you ever get the chance to be near Haywood Highsmith, he can tie his shoes standing up. His arms are so freaking long, and he's strong. That's the other thing. He's not like a Derrick Jones Jr. where he's very frail. He's strong. He's athletic. He's got a great mindset. I would throw him out there. I really think I would have put him out there more in the fourth quarter. But, you know, I think Spo's going to know what's best and try to go out there. Lynette agrees with that. Likelihood we see Highsmith game 4. Great minds think alike. Me, Greg, and Lynette are all in agreement. That's all that matters. Shout out to Lynette for being a sponsor. Check out Insurance by Lynette if you haven't already. You want to take one more?
Yeah, for sure. And a quick comment on Haywood Highsmith. I remember when I was talking to somebody in Charlotte about him, and they said, we basically found PJ Tucker. We just need to turn him into PJ Tucker. And I didn't have the guts to say that out loud until now, because he's kind of going to start to fill that void at some point. But anyway, park that away for another day. Let's see one more comment, and then we'll get up out of here. Van Lee says, why isn't Joker being put into early foul trouble between Bam and Jimmy? Seems like a no-brainer. Denver is helpless without Joker on the floor. Well, here's the one thing. Bam has been aggressive. He's tried to go at him. I think he has. I think that it's not so easy to do. Bam has definitely got him in action that has forced him to make decisions, and those decisions are ultimately allowing Bam to score. Anything else they could do differently to get him in foul trouble? I feel like that's a lot easier said than done. Maybe some passing action that gets him on the move could be something, but again, that's easier said than done. So just your thoughts there before we close.
Yeah, put him into actions. I think you make a good point with that, but they're smart about setting up matchups so that he can basically remain at the basket. I do think that he's a high IQ basketball player on both ends. He's not a good defender. He's not a good rim protector, but he's smart in that he will get himself in position. He'll play that verticality. Haven't had to use that since Roy Hibbert. And just basically play straight up. And yes, there is contact, but he's there and he's standing straight up like a statue, and they don't call those fouls. So I think trying to put the pressure on the officials, going into his body and creating contact and hoping that they blow the whistle. Me and Brian hinted at this last night. I think at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, probably about 9:05, we're going to get the message that Scott Foster will be in Miami. I feel pretty confident in that. And I think Scott Foster, he blows the whistle a lot. He calls a fairly tight game. And I think while he does cater to superstars in a lot of ways, I think that if you can put pressure on the rim and you can get him frustrated, it takes him right out of his game. And I think that's a great way for us to have an advantage. Greg, I'm going to throw one more up there because I think this is a good one to end on.
Absolutely.
We both had tweets about this over the last couple of days. So asking about Tyler Hero.
Let me start. So throughout this entire thing, I have been communicating with people who are very much involved with Tyler Hero's rehabilitation, have vested interest in his success, are trying to give me the best information about how he feels, about what he's doing on the court. And for all intents and purposes, I was under the impression that he was cleared and ready to go. That means a lot of different things to different people. I'm not walking anything back other than saying that the people that he worked out with on a regular basis felt like he was ready to play basketball. And so that was the final thing that I had heard. And then there was completely contrary to kind of where that felt like it was heading. And even this is beyond our network. Mr. Adrian Wojnarowski was reporting Game 3 was the target. Chris Haynes as well. So this was something that was spread by people that are bigger than the people I talked to. They thought Tyler was coming back. Immediately, a screeching halt came from many different angles, much closer to the Heat org than these national types. And Sean, take it away from here because you were really first that caught wind of this, and I think it's important to clarify exactly what you heard as well.
Yeah, Sunday night after Game 2, I had heard that it was complete, contrary to what everything else was being reported. And I was under the impression, I will say, that I thought he was going to come back in either 3 or 4 because that's what everybody was saying. And the messaging that I understood is he's far from being ready. And, so far, not playing in Game 3, not playing in Game 4, it's surprising, but so far it's accurate. And, I think there's a lot of ways that this can be read into. And I think that's something that's best served for a podcast or a Floor is Yours in about a week and a half, whenever this series is over and we've taken a couple of days to refresh ourselves. But, either he's medically or physically not ready to play, which is understandable. It's an injury and he's having swelling and things like that. It's a tough spot to jump back into. He's not playing tomorrow. So to throw him in Game 5 in altitude, that's a big ask. And, he's a polarizing guy. And if you throw him out there, I feel like he could become the scapegoat, which is not fair to him. Yeah. He could also be the hero. And he is a hero, obviously, because that's his last name. But, I just think that the timing of this, it doesn't appear like it's going to be what's going to happen. I think, and again, the wording that I got was he's far from being ready, and we're going to roll with what we've, used to get here. And I think that's going to be the case. So moving into the summertime, I think we're going to start to, get a little bit of a unpacking of where Tyler stands within the organization. And, Greg's tied into that type of stuff. So we'll keep updating you. Ethan's got ties, so we'll just stay tuned to that. And right now we should really just focus, as Spo says, keep the main thing. And right now that's game 4 tomorrow night in Miami. And, we'll have all that stuff. We'll have the podcast. We'll have the pregame, postgame, halftime spaces, playback. Check that out if you haven't done it. It's fun with me, Greg, Brian, Eternal, Tony. Everybody jumps in there. So it's a lot of fun. And Greg, anything that I forgot, because you're the pilot. I'm the co-pilot. I'm trying to figure out how to do all this.
5 on the floor. Check us out. We will have you covered on playback, as Sean mentioned. And definitely because everybody probably wishes that we were going to come on here and talk about Dame Lillard. We're not doing that yet. We have a game at hand. The NBA Finals are at hand. We are a championship organization that are worried about winning championships. We will have plenty of time to talk about Dame Lillard and friends as the draft is fast approaching. That's crazy. And also the free agency period. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to our sponsors. That's Bettor Edge, Prize Picks. Use the code 5 for Prize Picks, 5RSN for Bettor Edge. Sean, thank you for joining us. And this is that special edition of Floor is Yours, 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. Peace.